If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with another episode of Under the Radar for you guys. This time I'm talking about 4 albums that came out on September 29th. Well, 3, but 1 I was curious to check out from last week. And, well, let's get started. So we're going to get things going with a pretty big release that I was kind of hesitant to check out, and I think some of my hesitation was realized, and that is a.k.a.'s Priest, The Sinner Rides Again. So this is the second album from this new band from legendary Judas Priest guitarist K.K. Downing, as well as Tim Ripper Owens on vocals. Now, I've heard a lot of buzz about this band, and like people say, oh, this is Judas, this is better than modern Priest, or this is some great stuff. Well, I gave this album a listen, and, well, there are some cool riffs, there are some pretty cool melodies on here, some cool vocal moments, but to me, this does not feel like Judas Priest. Like, it almost feels like they're trying to be Priest, but failing at it. Honestly, I think this sounds closer to, like, power metal than it does Judas Priest. I'm not saying this album is bad by any stretch of the means, but for me, I was expecting a little more aggression on this album and maybe some more grit. While the production's actually pretty solid, and it was mixed and mastered by one Jacob Hansen, who I will be talking about on a later album, actually coming up next. But yeah, this album just did not grab me by the cojones, but it's still okay. I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. I think it's an okay album. Who knows, maybe if a.k.a.'s Priest puts out another album, maybe it'll be the best thing they ever did. But for me, it's going to be a middle-of-the-road album, at least for me. But now we move on, speaking of Jacob Hansen, let's talk about the next album, and that is Asinhell with Impii Hora. So this was a Metal Blade release that came out on September 29th, and actually I had no idea about this until one of my friends on Instagram told me, hey, you should check this out, this is some pretty killer stuff. So this is a Danish and German death metal supergroup, which features Mark Grew from Morgoth on vocals. You got Morten Toft Hansen from Hatesphere on drums, Michael Poulsen, the frontman of Volbeat, on guitars, and on bass, Jacob Hansen, who's from Invocator and Maceration, and he's also the producer on this album. Now, the production, I think it has a nice amount of grit, but everything's audible in the mix, and, well, this is some pretty solid old-school death metal. It's pretty thrashy, you got little bits of melody, it's plenty aggressive, there's some groove going on here, and even little increments of, like, brutality kind of flourish on here. However, I would say this is far more old-school death metal. Now, in terms of, like, old-school death metal releases this year, at least as far as, like, modern bands doing it, this one didn't really grab me too much, although I will say I like this one a little bit better than the a.k.a.'s Priest album, but not by a whole lot. It's pretty decent. This is a pretty decent debut. Who knows, maybe another album probably will blow this out of the water. For me, and if you are a fan of bands like Death, Morgoth, Obituary, and even Entombed, there are elements of those bands that you will like on here, and there were definitely moments on this album I enjoyed, but as a whole, felt a little bit uneven. I'm going to give this 7.5 out of 10. Of course, this is all just my opinion. But now we move on to some really good stuff. Up next we have Disguised Malignance with Entering the Gateways. This is a debut, so pretty much like every one of these, except for a.k.a.'s Priest, are debut albums, even though a.k.a.'s Priest, that was their second full-length. This is Disguised Malignance debut album. This is a Finnish death metal band. However, I will say I think this sounds more like American death metal for the most part. Like, it's very dark, sinister, feral, little bits of melody that kind of reminded me a little bit of like Bloodbath and even Hypocrisy. But it's just downright disgusting and, dare I say, disturbing to some degree. Like, this is a lot better, in my opinion, than the Asinhell album. And I love the production on here. It's a gritty recording, but the mix is top fucking notch. Like, the bass is prominent, everything's audible, and I just love the songwriting on here. Like, you got some, like, dark, nasty tremolo riffs that made me think of Morbid Angel. You also get some, like, really cool, like, fast, thrashy parts that made me think of Malevolent Creation. And even some, like, groovy breakdowns that almost feel like Suffocation. And even the vocals are, like, very low and guttural, which is always a plus. So if you are a fan of Suffocation, Bloodbath, Malevolent Creation, but most especially Morbid Angel, you will dig this. I certainly did. I think this is a really good album. 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed this one. But now we get into the final album for this week, and it's another debut. And this was one that came out last week, but I didn't get to check it out, so I was like, you know what? How about I just tag it on to this episode? And that is Acid Mass with Agonizer. So this is a debut album from a one-man thrash metal band from Cincinnati, Ohio, so just about 2 hours west of where I am. But, yeah, this is just raw, gritty, sinister, nasty thrash metal. And all of these songs are very short. Like, they go between, like, 2 minutes to 3 minutes. Like, it's short, compact, nasty thrash metal. Although, I will say this almost feels like a sample platter of the best thrash out there. Like, there's elements of German thrash, Bay Area thrash, blackened thrash, and death thrash. Only missing crossover thrash, and you would have had the 5 best styles of thrash metal out there. But, yeah, just these songs so full of energy and just dark, evil vibes. Just amazing all around. And all from one guy doing all this. The production, the guitars, bass, drums, the vocals, and he sounds evil with his vocals on this album. Musically, took me right back to the 80s and even a little bit of a modern edge. So if you are a fan of Hellripper, Slayer, Sodom, and even Testament, there are some killer parts on this album. And it's the shortest album of the list. It's only like nearly 24 minutes. So this is short, sweet, and to the point. I give this 9 out of 10. This was a fantastic debut from this guy, and I look forward to hearing more. But of course, links to these albums will be in the description box below. Let me know, what did you guys think, and let me know in the comments. And until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.